Alright, it's Liam. I want to thank everyone at the Oasis Podcast, as you were.
Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Oasis Podcast, the ultimate audio guide to Oasis. And as you can hear, my voice is absolutely knackered. But I've had a bit of a cold, but we struggle on because it's the Oasis Podcast, and that's what we do. So tonight, I'm recording this on the night of the 1st of June, 2024, and it's been the first night of the Liam Gallagher Definitely Maybe tour. And obviously I'm not there, but by all accounts, it's been a hell of a show. And what do we always say about Liam and Noel? Like, we want them to mix up the set. We want them to do different things. And Liam has absolutely done that tonight. Spoilers. I'm going to be talking about the songs played. I'm going to be playing clips of the songs played. If you don't want to hear that, then skip forwards now into the sort of the main interview part. The main interview part today is with Andrew Rooney, who is the author of the Oasis On Track book, which is out at the moment, which is basically the Oasis, like every song reviewed, like every song discussed and reviewed from the the pre-Definitely Maybe stuff all the way to the end. So it's absolutely great book. I've really important piece of work to have it out there, really. So it works as a nice kind of companion piece to Richard's book, and Andrew does big up Richard's book as well, which is great. So that will be later, but first off, so Liam played at Sheffield Arena tonight, and annoyingly, like often when Liam does these gigs, like you'll be seeing live streams will pop up, but I was hunting around everywhere for live streams. Nothing was coming up at all. Like one briefly came up by Sai, who does the Champagne Supernova on Instagram, but it must have been really bad signal or something in the venue, I imagine, because there was just nothing at all, which was really annoying. But there we are. Oh, and I am aware I'm a complete hypocrite because I always moan about how I hate phones at gigs, and I really don't like phones being out at gigs. And yet, on the day when I'm not there wanting to watch the Oasis Liam Gallagher Definitely Maybe show, I'm there sort of desperately trying to find someone live streaming it and annoyed that no one was. So that's a bit of karma there, I suppose. But anyway, so videos have started dropping online now from people uploading them. And so I've got the set list here. So check this out. So we didn't know, like, what's he going to play. He sort of said he was going to do B-sides. He said he was going to do the album in full, but not the album in full in a row because, like, Live Forever needs to be later in the set. So, so it's sort of how do you do it? And I was interested to see how he would do it. And, and so it goes like this. Rock and Roll Star, Columbia, Shaker Maker, first time played by any Oasis member since 2001. Up in the Sky, first time by an Oasis member since 1995. Digsy's Dinner, first time sung by Liam since 1995. I know Noel did it a few times in the early days of NGHFB. Bring It On Down, which Liam's done a few times, but not since, I think, about 2018. Cloudburst Live. That's not been played live since 1994. No videos of that have popped up yet, but I'm sure they will soon. I Will Believe, never been played live, or only very, very early days live. So incredible that they played that. Half the World Away, first time we've ever heard that sung by Liam, and he dedicated it to Noel. I think he said my little brother or something. Do You Want to Be a Spaceman? He's played live. Now he did do that. He did do that a few times around 2018. Remember, that was the funny one where we found out that he'd be playing it because Cynthia, who had done the fashion episode on the podcast, she was sort of working. I think she was volunteering at the gig and sort of heard it and recorded it. But yeah, that was good. So that's the first time that's been played since then. Fade Away, which he's done a few times, but still. Lock All the Doors. Lock All the Doors. So he's played like the Oasis demo version of Lock All the Doors, which is mad. And then It's Good to Be Free, which is the first time Liam's done that since 1995. Whatever, which he's done, quite a lot, but not since 2018. Cigarettes Now Cold, which he does every time. And Married with Children, which is the first time Liam sung that since 2002. And then we get into Supersonic, Slide Away, Live Forever. And then I'm the Walrus, which is the first time that Liam's done that as a solo act. So the last time he would have done that was the last ever Oasis gig in 2009. So absolutely insane. Yeah, and the clips I've heard, it all sounds pretty amazing. But let's have a listen to a few then, shall we? So here is Lock All the Doors. So the one thing I'll say about that, it does feel a little bit slow. I think compared to the original Oasis demo version, I think that feels a little bit faster. But yeah, still very, very cool to hear that. Next up, here's Liam. I mean, that's not even like something that we knew he'd done a version of or anything like that. But yeah, he's done it. So really, really cool. And I think he sings it brilliantly. I think it's ideal. Just all little slight different variations in the melody and stuff that he does just because that's how he tends to sing. I think it works really well. Let's go now with a bit of Digsy's Dinner. Love Digsy's Dinner, and what I can imagine that would be absolutely brilliant to see live. So yeah, very, very cool. Digsy's Dinner, awesome stuff. Here is Married with Children. So I wasn't sure if he would go acoustic, Married with Children, like if he's doing the album, you should go pure acoustic. Whereas when Oasis played it live, they used to do the rocked up version. And obviously, yeah, they've gone for the rocked up version. So like similar to how he does it on Live by the Sea, I suppose is how I sort of always think of it. And then, yeah, and then I'm the Walrus to finish. Great to get a bit of Walrus there. So very, very exciting. Yeah, what a show. I haven't got tickets for the Definitely Maybe tour, but actually I've just seen there is a few free. Like there's like seats in London, but they're like 110 quid. I'm like, can I justify it? I don't know. As of right now, I'll say no, but I'm feeling very tempted. Let's just say that. All right, stop the clocks. It's James here on the morning of the 2nd. Voice is feeling a little bit better, but still a bit rough. But we've had overnight a couple of messages come in from our good friend Ryan Harvey. So Ryan was at the Sheffield gig and he is pinged me a couple of messages with his thoughts from the gig. So look forward to hearing this from Ryan.
Hi JC, this is Ryan Harvey at the Harvey Boys with a late night call. Just back from the Sheffield gig and just thought I'd give you my thoughts So just an hour away over the Peak District from here, so I couldn't resist going to the opening night, really. So I was kind of glad it was Sheffield. Sheffield's my sort of spiritual family home, or my mother's side home. So absolutely enjoyed that. Went with one of the Harvey boys, my sons, and absolutely loved it. And it was well worth going to see those first time things and what they did with the set and stage. So we went early, obviously, to see to actually get, look at the merch, get some of the exclusive venue poster for the actual Sheffield gigs. They're doing 100 per show, so it was cool to get one of those once they opened the doors. And then we were there to see Villanelle. So as you know, they were actually on support of my son's band, Alex Spencer. Back at the O2 Ritz about 6 weeks ago, and we actually got to hang out and meet them quite a lot in the evening and sell merchandise and stuff after the gig. So we were, chatting away for about a good hour after, when they were just sort of trying to sell some merchandise. And so they're really sound loud. So I'm be a bit biased now, because they were, really humble, really, Gene sort of really nervous around just the attention, obviously, that he must get everywhere he goes. But they were absolutely sound to hang out with. So I was enjoyed watching them. Wanted to see how they did. They performed similar like they did at the Ritz. But they're definitely growing in their confidence, and well done to them for perform. I think it was probably about half full by the time they finished the set. There's a couple they haven't released any material yet, but there is a couple of the songs that I quite like now on repeated listening. And then Cast, obviously, standard brilliant Britpop 90s stuff. I sort of missed half of it trying to get through people for the toilet. And then you could see behind the netting, because we were at the side, we were quite high up on the 200 blocks, but right sort of side on to the stage. So actually where we could see them walking up to the stage and stuff. But we could see that there was a massive globe, there definitely may be globe behind the curtain. And obviously the flamingos and the palm trees that were scattered around. So that immediately confirmed what we thought after Liam had tweeted the flamingos picture the day before. But it was basically the big globe. They'd got Burt Bacharach was on the keyboard guy, so where they normally have rock and roll on the keyboard, on the white keyboard, basically got the Burt Bacharach cover there. They had one of the monitors was like the TV, so the Good, the Bad and the Ugly TVs, that was behind Mike, the guitarist. So that was used to show different images and sort of do sort of 80s, 90s style flashing, crackly TV images quite a lot. And then, the flamingos. What else? I don't know. Yeah, obviously great to see Bonehead come out and play the whole set. So the stage was brilliant, and we did we got the walk on, so they did various clips of Liam's famous interviews from 94, 95, 96, just sound bites while they walked on. So obviously everybody just went crazy as expected. So let me just look at the set list. So obviously Rock and Roll Star was predictably first, and then straight into Columbia, so immediately thought of you. But it's just so good, for just admit it. It's so good with the thumping, drums and the groove. I guess it's the groove, as you call it. It's just so good in a live setting, I think. Shaker Maker was cool. Up in the Sky, obviously done properly rather than an addendum to whatever, as they used to do. Was it whatever? No, anyway, I can't remember. Diggsy's Dinner, again, cool. So these are all just cool. Liam was, his, voice was good. No issues. Issues when we get to Half the World Away, but before that, everything went rather smoothly, I think. Bring It On Down, as I say, we've heard that before with his band. Cloudburst, obviously enjoyed. I Will Believe, I really enjoyed. So it's just such a, I don't know, I guess it's Noel standard 101 pentatonic guitar solo. But that was I really enjoyed that one, because I know that one, know that one quite well. Then Half the World Away was, just crazy. And unfortunately, there was an issue with the first issue I noticed with Liam's monitor. So he did get the timing wrong on the first couple of verses, and he was immediately reverted to the pissed off shouting at the sound guy or gesturing to the sound guy. So I think he'd either got too much of the violins or something in his monitors, and he couldn't hear, so he kind of randomly guessed at the timing of the first two verses. But then once we got to the second verse, which I think is the clip that you've got, second verses and chorus, it was all good. So, and yeah, he did really well. So that was a bonus. And then Do You Want to Be a Spaceman? Really enjoyed. Fade Away. Lock All the Doors. The sound was really loud, really distorted, so I couldn't really work out what that was until the chorus hit. And then I was like, but I literally think I've probably only heard that once anyway, so there was no way I was going to recognise it. And it is very slow, obviously not energetic at all. Good to Be Free, really cool. Whatever, they had the big screen of the field and the sky behind, so that was really cool. Cigarettes and Alcohol just went off properly, everyone going absolutely mental. Married with Children was okay, but they came up with a really, what I thought was a funny or not right drums for it. They were almost like do da do like a We Will Rock You sort of thing going through it. I don't know what type of drum beat you call that, but it didn't sound right. So I don't know if was it Dan the drummer's come up with that or someone else. I know when they obviously didn't play it live very often, so they had the really sort of punky Tony McCarroll drums when in the sort of 95, I guess. But it didn't sound right, and again it was slow. I think it was a bit too slow, so not very. And I know it's not an energetic song, but they added drums to it, and the drums were a bit weird to me. So that I couldn't sort of distract myself from that during that one. And then they went off, then the encore was amazing. Supersonic, absolutely brilliant. Slide Away, which obviously we haven't heard for a while again as well, I think, from Liam's band. And Live Forever was brilliant, and I actually think they should have ended on that, because everyone was on a massive high, and everyone's arm in arm, the whole arena arm in arm singing that. And then they came back on. He didn't say Silly Billies because nobody left this time. But then I'm the Walrus was a bit like, I don't know, it was a bit of a damp squib, I felt like anyway. But I wonder if it's, again, more the super fans that know I'm the Walrus, or which seems odd because obviously the There and Then video and things like that. But yeah, I think everyone was maybe spent by that point. So the I'm the Walrus was a nice bonus, but it didn't really kick off or anything. Everyone was just there, polite golf clap, as Noel would say. So I think everyone's energy was drained after Live Forever. So it's cool to get another song, but he definitely could have, or maybe should, end on Live Forever, because it's just the high point, really, that everyone's waiting for. And then to go off and come back and then do I'm the Walrus, I don't know, that didn't seem very energetic, or at least the crowd weren't anyway. So yeah, that was it. Absolutely worth going. Anyone who can get a ticket. What I would say is the section in the middle with all the B-sides. So Cloudburst, I believe. Yeah, the Lock All the Doors. Even It's Good to Be Free, to be honest. The energy did drop a bit, and now I know people kind of they can't go full on all the way through the gigs well. So I would say the energy dropped. The Lock All the Doors. I mean, I don't really see the point in doing that, because that is literally for the, I don't know. I mean, even I didn't really recognise what it was. So that is a real niche target audience there. So I don't know. The crowd got a bit. It was definitely a lull of 4 or 5 songs in the middle where everyone had a rest, which is probably needed anyway when you're going crazy for the other songs. But yeah, obviously I enjoyed them. Cloudburst, I think I Will Believe was maybe the highlight for me. Just really enjoyed hearing that for the first time properly. So, and then Just look at the list again. I'd say Cigarettes and Alcohol was really, really good. And obviously Slide Away with Bonehead playing, obviously he's back from his illness as well. So just amazing all around. Yeah, so I hope you can get to a gig, because it's definitely worth it for, maybe not something you'll get to see, see those songs, certainly all those 94, 95 songs played. I don't think that's something that's going to happen again. So definitely worth going along if you can. Keep your eye on tickets and whatever. Right, good night, bye. Oh, and also another staging thing. They at 8:30 they put the big like one of those clocks. Back in the day, it used to flick over for the numbers. So they put 2024 up at 8:30, which basically gave us a 30-minute countdown to the gig in years. So every 1 minute it went down, 2023, 22. So everyone sort of cheering when it hit sort of 96. And then, as you can imagine, when it hit 994, there was a big... And then that was, the point where the gig... They did started the video and did the walk on. So again, nice to see some effort put into the staging of it as well. So that was cool as well.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Really appreciate that. Yeah, that's sounds great. And it is tempting me more and more to try and get a ticket and go. Just to clarify, I'm going to be in Manchester on June the 16th when Liam is playing the arena. Because obviously we've got this upcoming Oasis Collectors Group Together We'll Fly thing at Salford Lads Club, which I'm going to be there for. So I'm actually around and in Manchester, and am tempted. So if anyone's got a spare ticket for that, that'd be great. Otherwise, I might just need to remortgage the house, but we shall see. All right, let's go back to me from last night. Right, very exciting, very cool. There's other things to cover in the world of Oasis, but I will pick up on that next episode. Because my voice is knackered, and obviously that Liam stuff is very cool. So we're going to come back on other stuff such as the Noel doing the Jules Holland Black Keys, Noel appearing on various documentaries, Noel refusing to do Poznan, various things we'll cover on next episode. But for now, we will pass over to me and author Andrew Rooney. All right, so Andrew Rooney, welcome to the Oasis Podcast, man. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
No,
I've been a big fan for a while, and it's a treat. So thank you.
And you're up at a stupid o'clock in the morning over there in the USA.
Yes, it is 5:04 a.m. right now, but ready to go, and a productive day ahead of me. So
good stuff. But so whereabouts are you? Is it Milwaukee, Wisconsin?
Yes, so Milwaukee, so it's about an hour and a half north of Chicago, smack dab in the middle of the Midwest. I don't know if you have any NBA fans who listen to your show, but the Milwaukee Bucks are the hometown basketball team, so they've grown pretty popular here in the last couple of years, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that my main knowledge of Milwaukee is that bit when Alice Cooper breaks down the history of Milwaukee and Wayne's World.
Yeah.
So I'll be dropping in the clip of that here.
So, do you come to Milwaukee often?
Well, I'm a regular visitor here, but Milwaukee has certainly had its share of visitors. The French missionaries and explorers were coming here as early as the late 1600s to trade with the Native Americans.
In fact, isn't Milwaukee an Indian name?
Yes, Pete, it is. Actually, it's pronounced Miliwake, which is Algonquin for the good land.
I was not aware of that.
I think one of the most interesting aspects of Milwaukee is the fact that it's the only major American city to have ever elected 3 socialist mayors.
Does this guy know how to party or what? Huh? Huh? Huh.
So there you go. So yeah, that was it. But yeah, I'm a big NBA fan, and yeah, Giannis, the Greek,
Yes.
is
Yeah,
just
yeah.
an absolute legend, isn't he? He's a monster.
Oh, yeah, he's phenomenal. He actually lives about a mile and a half from here, so he's hopefully not sleeping right now. But yeah,
Fair enough. No, well, as I'm Irish parentage, so I'm a Boston Celtics fan, obviously, because I think that's the rules, isn't it? If you're Irish,
yeah, you have to be.
that is kind of the rules. So yeah. Although what was it? There's a player called Trey Young, which obviously like, hey, Trey Young, but apparently
Oh,
like people don't like him. I think he's a bit of a prick, I think, apparently. Cool. All right. Well, look. So, yeah. So, I suppose the main reason we're talking is that you are have joined a pantheon of Oasis book authors, which is very exciting. So, it's sort of on track, part of the on track series.
yes.
Yeah. How are you feeling? It's out there. I've seen sort of pictures of it in the world now. Must be very exciting.
Yeah, it is. So I got a copy right here. I know there was a little bit of a logistics issue of trying to send you a copy, but hopefully the copy that you got worked in terms of just being able to go through it. Um, it's funny though, because the actual book was probably finished last year at this point, but didn't come out until late last year. So it's just kind of going through that process of the publishing and of the editing. It's kind of a time consuming process, but feels good. It's exciting. I got to spend a lot of time with those songs, which was fun. Especially kind of the songs that people don't really talk about. So
Yeah. No, great. Well, it's as I say, I've had the PDF. I'll definitely be hoping to get a paper copy. But yeah, it was and I'm gonna to say I was a bit gutted actually, because the idea for what became, some might say, the book that Richard did based on the podcast interviews, my original idea for that was an Oasis track by track, right?
yeah,
So I thought
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I really want to do, because one of my favorite books is Revolution in the Head, which is
yes,
the same for the Beatles, and I just thought, oh, that's what I could really do with, is we've got enough of the the rise of Oasis and the first
mhm,
two albums or whatever. We've had enough of that, but I want breakdowns, and that's why we do the
right,
Oasis Z, So I sort of thought,
yes,
well, so that's the chance to talk about things, and doing it as A to Z. It means you talk about songs that are not necessarily the most interesting ones or the most popular ones, because if you follow in that route, that's just what you got to do. But yeah, but then and I'd sort of thought about writing that book myself. I'm not a writer, but I thought that's what we really want. And then when it came up, you'd done it, I was like, well, number one, I'm happy it's going to be out there, because I wanted it to be out there, and it means I don't have to
yes.
write it. But I was a bit like, oh, for fuck's sake, that was my idea. But anyway, yeah, but no, yeah, well done. But was it? So what was the idea? Was that because I know it's part of a series, isn't it, on track? So how
Yeah.
did
So there's a publisher called Sonic Bond Publishing. They do books on different bands, movies, the decades, and they have this program called On Track. And basically, they look at an entire artist's career in terms of officially released songs from the first album to the end. So my kind of mission was to start with Definitely Maybe, the associated singles, and then kind of work through the entire catalog. And like you say, that was fun because we all know those first two albums so well, and all those singles. But I mean, when you get into Heathen Chemistry and stuff like that, you're playing songs that you don't really listen to as much. So it's kind of fun to go through the whole catalog and say, hey, this song is better than I thought it was, or this song was great. No one talks about this song, so it was fun to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, well, that's cool. And well, look, let's just take it back. So are you a Milwaukee boy? Is that where you grew up?
Yeah, so I grew up here. I was born in San Francisco, wound up here in fifth grade, so about 12 years old, and then I've been here since then. Done some odd jobs. I actually work in education right now. So this book was mainly written at 10 o'clock at night. So half hour here and there, 2 hours on a Sunday maybe, but yeah.
And is there much of a music scene in and around Milwaukee, Wisconsin, or do you have to go to Chicago to see the bands? What's the plan?
You get a lot of great artists coming through here, actually. So the stadium where the Bucks play is a great place to see kind of bigger bands like that. The east side of Milwaukee's always been famous for concerts, Bayview area. I don't catch quite as much local music as I did 10 years ago, but a good scene here.
Cool. And what about you? So when did you grow like getting into music was sort of when did you first start getting into music, and where did Oasis come into that?
So my parents are both big fans. I kind of did the classic rock, 101, Beatles, Stones, Eagles, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin. And then from there, that kind of takes you into some of the Britpop stuff. So when I was in San Francisco growing up, I actually remember this, and I make a shout out to my dad in my book. It definitely maybe had just been released, and so there was this big display of CDs, and I think it was a CD warehouse and outside San Francisco, and he had heard about this album. I think George Martin had made some type of quote about Noel Gallagher being the best songwriter since John and Paul. And he had heard that quote, and he pointed the album out to me and said, this is going to be huge, and I actually picked it up at that point. Didn't really become a fan for, 5 or 10 years after that, but kind of the traditional classic rock route sent me to Oasis.
Yeah. And so how old were you then in 94 then? Or when you first?
So I probably would have been 10 when that happened. So.
Oh, yeah. Very cool. And then do you remember sort of when you first got into them and sort of that sort of impact, or was it? I know obviously in America it sort of was slightly different, especially if you weren't there for that couple of years in 95, 96 when it went mad. So,
yep.
So how did that
hugely different. So MTV was absolutely massive here from like 90, 94, 95, 96. So my first exposure to kind of those songs was the Wonderwall music video, Champagne Supernova music video. So those songs I had always heard, but it took probably until I was 13, 14 years old until I actually sat down and said, all right, let's play this album. But those music videos were absolutely giant.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And did you get to see them live at all?
I did not, sadly. So they came through Milwaukee a few times, and actually the version of Hey Hey My on Familiar to Millions was actually recorded here. But no, I missed a couple opportunities, just family obligations and traveling, but I never saw them live. So.
No, fair enough. And is it sort of, I mean, with in and around like you and your friends and things, is like how big are they, as compared? Are you like the weird guy that likes Oasis, or is it like, are they big enough that that's not necessarily weird?
It's not weird, but I would not say that most of my kind of contemporary friend group are fans. It's a shame for me because I absolutely love Britpop. So Oasis, Stone Roses, Blur, all that stuff. And my friend group is pretty dialed in to music, so they know about those bands. But I would say that they're not really big fans, sadly. No. So yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And so what about with this with the book then? Was it like have you written books before, or was this your first sort of first attempt?
So I wrote for the school newspaper in college, did some record and concert reviews, some kind of random culture stuff, had a couple bad attempts at starting a blog, but this was kind of the first official book that I wrote.
Okay.
And kind of learning kind of what worked, what didn't work. If I could go back and do things again, I would definitely make some changes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And how did it come about then? Did you just contact the publisher and say, look, I know you're doing this on track series. I'd be happy to do the Oasis one.
So actually my dad is a massive fan of the band Yes. I also love prog rock and all that stuff too. So I was actually reading a book on Yes, which was written or is part of that series. And, there's a little page back there that says, if you'd like to write for us, email us at this address. And I'm like, oh, so email them, didn't really expect to hear back, but I hear back from this very nice man, Stephen Lamb, who's kind of the guy who's in charge of it. And he said, who are some people who you would like to do? And, like you kind of see their list of all the bands that have been done, you kind of Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, the Stones, all those. So I was trying to think of a band that had a rich, strong catalog, but also, kind of was a little bit undervalued in some circles. And so that's how I chose Oasis.
Right. Okay. I mean, like I said earlier, like what I really like about this and what I liked about obviously Richard's book was the fact that it is the whole career. It's not just so many of them. It just annoys me that it's stupid that you've got all these books, about Oasis that just follow like 94 to 96 and like film and things like that. And yet, there's those albums were still huge, and the concerts and everything were still huge, and there's some important stuff. So I suppose that so for you as a fan, had you always taken the long view of looking at the whole career, or was it then more of like a journey for you to actually go, oh, hold on, but what is what are these sort of later B-sides and things like that?
So I was familiar with the whole career. I was always I when I was in high school, college, I became obsessed with purchasing all the singles. So I had all these B-sides, all these singles, but I'm not really playing the the Lila single that much. Just that's a great single, but I'm just happy to have it. So kind of being forced to go through the whole career, gave me a newfound love for all those songs. But I think, to your point, the format works well because we all know and love, those first two albums, right? But whenever people talk about them, they talk about as if, Be Here Now kind of marked the end of their career. And it's like, they still had 4 more albums after that with great songs, great singles, great B-sides. So I kind of liked writing about those more than I liked writing about, Slide Away, which is obviously a phenomenal song, but, how much more can one say about it? It's kind of like when you read those Beatles books, they're absolutely phenomenal. And Revolution in the Head is a favorite of mine too. But, Ian MacDonald found a way to talk about the songs in such a brilliant way. And part of that was that he was able to access all those Abbey Road recording logs. And it would be great if someday Noel would, make it easy for us to kind of hear all these demos and, kind of the step-by-step process. And then, someone could write a really, really definitive book on all those sessions. But
yeah, that's I completely agree. And I even like I think that like there is sort of logs. Nick Bryan's got the logs for like Morning Glory just because they're still there in the studio, but it's not even like he goes, yeah, I think I've got those somewhere in the cowshed. You know what I mean? Like they've got them, but yeah, that's what we want. Like I like a lot of Beatles podcasts, and they know, for instance, okay, on the this date in 1970 was the last ever session, and it was like the overdubs that Paul came in and did on I Me Mine, or I don't know if that's I think that's right, but you know what I mean. So we know what the last ever session was, that what the last ever thing the Beatles recorded was. We haven't got a clue for Oasis. What we know is, well, Dig Out Your Soul was recorded between these dates, and then but who knows, like whether whether it was the overdubs for Soldier On was the last thing they were, we just don't know. And so no, I completely agree. It's so frustrating that really that's what we need. We need someone in Ignition or someone in, whoever it is, to just go, right, let's write the definitive book and let's get every session log and let's just get it all out there, because otherwise we're just guessing, aren't we?
And I think there are 2 great Oasis books left to be written. I think the first one is that one right there, where someone really goes in and writes a 300-400 page book that really dives into every single version of these songs. I also think the second great book is a book that's written in full cooperation with Noel, Liam, Bonehead, that, it's a true biography
Yeah.
that, has the cooperation of all the main players.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I don't think, as I said, there's the Supersonic book that came out a couple of years ago, but which is the transcripts of the interviews.
Yeah.
But once again, it's like 94 to 96, and so
It focuses on those.
aren't we? But yeah, and then as well, it's like, one of the nice things about your book and things is that, and obviously it's something I try and do on the A to Z feature when we focus on the individual songs, is that, digging into those facts, those little facts about the songs that when it's B-sides and things like that, you might not even think about. So, like, people might not know who, I don't know, who Diggsy is, right? And so
Right.
actually you go, oh no, well, Diggsy was Stephen Deary. He was in
Yeah.
the books and Smaller, and and you
Yeah,
can and like, even because there's a lot of, one of the things I did, one of the things I've been meaning to keep going back and doing is just like all of the, like like these movie YouTube channels that will do like Easter egg breakdowns and things,
yeah.
like in every, things you missed sort of breakdowns on films or trailers or whatever. And there's so many little Oasis cultural references. So like at the end of which is one of the Stand By Me B-sides, where it goes jazz, nice, and that's like a reference to the Fast Show. You know what I mean? There's so many there's little bits like that they pepper throughout it.
Jazz, nice.
Hello, and welcome to Jazz Club, bringing you all that's best in the world of jazz. Nice.
So what was your main sort of sources, as you're listening to the music and you're actually just writing your opinions on the songs themselves?
Yeah.
You then sort of going out to books, you're going out to reviews from the time. What was your process?
So all of that. So the Supersonic book was big. The Richard Bowes book was big. I did read, some of the kind of more kind of band written memoirs. Tony McCarroll's memoir. But really just, kind of listening to the songs, kind of looking for past articles, reviews, trying to synthesize that a little bit. Noel and Liam, but Noel especially, has made so many comments on almost every single one of these songs in the past that you can pretty much find a Noel quote for every single song. So trying to work in some of those quotes, see what people say about the song. As someone who never really played a instrument, I can't really speak, to the musical intricacies of the song, but so it becomes, kind of more of a, what do people tend to say about the song? What did the press, say about the song? What did the band think about this song? Is this something that's underrated? Things like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and that's one of the things I find tricky, is that when you, like Revolution in the Head, for instance, obviously he is a really clever musician.
Yeah.
And they're able to break down, okay, well look, on this song it's because he goes to the A sus chord there and it's an Aeolian note, or all that sort of stuff. And that sort of stuff goes over my head a little bit. But obviously I know a little. I played guitar a small amount, and I kind of get, okay, well that's why he goes from minor to minor, but I don't understand it. All I know is, like, I love the change from stand up beside a fireplace, take that look from me for face, and I know it's because he goes from an F to an F minor, and that major to minor is what makes it so magic. So there's little things like that I know about, but I suppose it's tricky when you've got to, I suppose there's some songs that have got more about them, that and then some of them, I suppose there's not a huge amount to say, so I suppose that must be tricky for you to sort of
decide
I mean, you're going to do a whole chapter on Supersonic, because we know the making of Supersonic, everyone knows that story, but then something like, I don't know, Get Off Your High Horse Lady, there might be like 3 lines or something, so it must have been tricky to kind of decide where to put your focus.
Yeah, and then kind of like you say, for Supersonic, for Wonderwall, Slide Away, some might say, right, like those big hits, we have so much information on those songs. So, you kind of have to pick and choose what to talk about. And then, for essentially songs from the last 4 albums, with a few exceptions, there's not really as much out there. So, you kind of have to kind of dig a little bit deeper for that. But I think also what you kind of say right there is part of why Noel was so brilliant, because a person without some of the musical background of someone like a George Martin, or, some of the raw talent of someone like, McCartney, he was still able to write those songs that had those, key changes and those choruses. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And with the so having gone through those, like you're saying, like the later ones and the B-sides that maybe you weren't familiar with, did any really jump out to you as like, oh wow, how did I not realize that this was so special?
So I think, like many people, Idler's Dream, is something that has really spoke to me. I had heard that on the Hindu Times single, but it's just kind of blends in with everything else when you first hear it. And then, kind of going back, you're like, holy shit, that song's great. I think Don't Believe the Truth in general, always an album that I liked, especially those singles, but things like, Keep the Dream Alive, I'm like, how is this not a big hit? So just kind of going back and hearing those. Heathen Chemistry, Born on a Different Cloud, songs like that are great. Probably my least favorite album, but I mean, every song or every album has, great songs. I mean, Oasis doesn't really have a lot of bad songs. Even their songs that are not great are still pretty solid. I mean, some of the B-sides maybe get a little bit shaky towards the end, but yeah. So I'd say Don't Believe the Truth was probably the album that I fell in love with again.
And how did you choose? Like, was there a sort of a remit within, because you say every album, every song, but obviously with Oasis you cover B-sides as well. You mentioned the Definitely Maybe stuff, but you don't go into a lot of, you don't mention like Noel's early demos, for instance, but
Yeah.
you mention the like Take Me and Reminisce and those sort of, but you just sort of cover those off briefly. Was there a sort of decision to make about, well, what do you include and what don't you include?
So I had included a few extra pages on those kind of early demos, like Snake Bite and stuff like that, that actually got taken out. So I kind of wish they would have taken out everything, because then, kind of real fans like you are like, well, why are they talking about these 4 songs but not, these other songs? But I mean, kind of like you said, where if there was information or kind of verifiable details, I would try to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, there's some phenomenal websites that I know that you've talked about on the podcast, like oasisrecordinginfo.com, or and then the demos website as well.
Oh,
There's a lot of
Mr. Monobrow, isn't it? He's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great stuff on there. But I mean, really any song that appeared on their official album. So something like, Familiar to Millions, right? I had already talked about Supersonic in the first chapter, but, I didn't talk about Hey, Hey, My. So then I would talk about that song. The B-sides, obviously, the Goal soundtrack, any song that was, Within You, Without You, just kind of any song that officially was put out at some point during their career.
Yeah. See, that's interesting though, isn't it? Because stuff like Within You, Without You was not an official release. It was just like it was performed on a TV show. So it's sort of, because there's these quirky things when you think about, okay, how many songs did they release? It's like, well,
right.
Do you count Wibbling Rivalry? You know what I mean?
I actually did. So the Wikipedia bastard website, but still has some good stuff. They actually have a page called Every Recording by Oasis. So I printed that off at one point, and I think there's, I don't know, I could pull it up here, but So I basically kind of use that as my checklist of, what songs to go through. So, they have a Wibbling Rivalry, they have Within You, Without You. They don't have any of the demos though, but I kind of use that as the sheet to kind of cross-reference.
Yeah, no, and then you've got things like, obviously Don't Stop having come out now that wasn't an official recording at the time.
Yeah,
It's things that like Oasis record that were Oasis songs, but they were going to be Oasis songs, but then came out on Noel's albums or BDI
yeah,
and things like that.
yeah,
So
yeah. So the Don't Stop, kind of serves as the conclusion of the book. Solo stuff, I think there's a great book to be written there, but just because of kind of the limitations of the series, and you have to stay within a certain word count actually, just for the publisher. There just wasn't enough space to talk about the solo albums. But I mean, I think, especially with the Definitely Maybe tour next year, I think there's going to be a lot of cool stuff that comes out here over the next few years with both Liam and Noel. So
yeah. I mean, by the sounds of it, I mentioned it on the last episode, but we're getting an official release for the Sawmill sessions. We're getting an official release for Mono Valley, which should be good because it's not come out before. But still, yeah, we know that there is other stuff out there to come. And so, so I suppose if we do end up finding some, 5 or 6 new songs, then that's the second edition in a couple of years.
it's a new book, yeah, and I mean, I'm hoping to hear the Liam version of Sad Song, and kind of its perfect audio quality. That's my hope here. And I know that Noel has never been shy about putting out these deluxe edition box sets and stuff. So I hope that, when he does that for the last 4 albums, that we get a lot of these demos and, kind of live versions of the songs and covers that, he did in the studio.
Yeah. I suppose it's tricky then as well, like with like live versions or live versions of songs. I know you've mentioned like, you'll mention the Columbia, and then you mentioned, when talking about the B-side, you mentioned the Columbia White Label and things like that. Or then you've got things like collaborations as well, like not playing All I Want to Do Is Rock by Travis. Like a bit of a minefield, I suppose.
So I didn't talk about any of the Prodigy stuff. I did talk about, of course, Setting Sun, because that was such a important song for Noel. But I mean, there was really any song that was listed as a track on either an album or a single. So like Live Forever, right? You have 3 or 4 versions because it's on Definitely Maybe, it's on the single, and then talks about the other stuff, and people just talk about the gossip and the drama and the drunken parties, but people forget about those songs. And so part of my point with this book was trying to get people to say, okay, all that stuff can still be true, but we still got a great body of work here.
Yeah, no, I noticed that on your blurb. It was like, no, this isn't focused on the stories and the fights and the stuff, and that's exactly like the podcast really tries to be. I mean, if someone wanted to phone me up, do an interview, they were a photographer and Liam punched them, great, that'd be entertaining. But most of the time, but I just find it's funny. I just find a lot of that talk is just boring, and yet what we've got, what made them great, it was the image and it was the fighting and it was everything else. But ultimately, if the music had been rubbish, there's been great bands out there that have looked great, or they've had fights, or there's whatever. But you just don't, if the songs aren't good, you're not going to make it, are you? You're not going to stand the time.
No, and it's people can quibble about this, but I always say they're the best singles band of all time in terms of non-album singles. And people always say, well, what about the Beatles? And I say for non-album singles, I'd actually put the Beatles behind Oasis. So
what do you mean non-album singles? Sorry.
Well, so like if if you take all of the Oasis B-sides, right?
Oh, right. Okay. Every song that
the Beatles B-sides, the Beatles B-sides are great, but I don't think that they go quite as deep as the Oasis B-sides. Yeah.
So if you've got a collection of songs that weren't on albums, like the Beatles is the Past Masters.
Yeah.
you've got an album of just every, like, there's the master plan, obviously, and and if
Yeah,
people have been a fan, like Master Plan Volume 2, I got you. Yeah. There's
I
not
would
many
too.
bands that that have got. I know, like Stone Roses have got a few, Smiths have got a few, but yeah, most bands they tended to get
Yeah,
rid
and
of the
and Blur, the Jam, but kind of that great British tradition of putting out an A side and then having a B side, with one or two songs that are sometimes just as good as those songs. And I mean, this point has been belabored, included in my book. But if Noel would have just kind of slowed down a little bit, he would have had 4 killer albums of all of those songs that he could have put out. You know, but then instead you have 4 singles, and you're kind of songs like Talk Tonight, or Around Our Way, which would have made for a phenomenal album, kind of get lost on these singles a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny, so it's obviously because over here, like, we were, it was just the standard thing. You go and buy the singles, and it was such a part of it. But it is strange that when you talk to Americans or people in other countries where that just wasn't the case, and so a lot of people, it was only hearing
Yeah.
the master plan.
hmm
Suddenly
Yeah,
heard.
yeah.
And
Right.
obviously now we're in a post-streaming world, and so you can get, that's why when I listen to Oasis, unless it's coming up to an anniversary or something, or unless it's a like for an upcoming episode, I'll just tend to listen to them on shuffle. Oasis A
Yeah.
to Z, and I think it's a really democratic way of listening, because it
Mm-hmm.
means that you're not going to get a focus on the first 2 albums. You are going to get later
Everything.
stuff and B-sides, and they're all going to perform. So
Yeah.
so I suppose that's the big difference, really, is that pre and post streaming. Really, it's huge.
Oh, you've absolutely hit it on the head there, because for me, and I talk about this in the book, like when I wanted to hear to buy the Hindu Time single, to buy the Don't Go Away, the Japanese import, some of those albums get expensive. But like it turns into like a hobby to collect them all, so now I have all my little B-sides, I think it's 32 or 36 singles. But now that they're on streaming services, it's almost made it too easy, and kind of takes a little bit of that fun away from it. I mean, but now you can go onto Spotify and you can have access to 99% of all the songs that are talked about in the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, look. So, where can people get the book? What's the plan?
So the best place to buy it from is, of course, directly from the publisher, Sonic Bound Publishing. I can email you a link. Of course, it's on Amazon as well. Not quite as fun, and but it's very easy to find it there.
Excellent. And if people want to follow you, you're Ramblin' Rune, aren't you?
Yeah, my Twitter presence isn't that big, but yes, Ramblin' Rune, that's me. That was the byline that I used when I wrote for the paper, and actually the same tagline that my dad used 50 years ago in high school. So.
Oh, that's nice. It's a nice continuation. Cool. All right. Well, look, thank you so much for your time. It's been really good fun. I'll definitely say I've really enjoyed reading the Word version I've got, but I'll have to grab it. But yeah, Andrew, thank you very much. And
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and take it easy.
So thank you very much to Andrew. And if you want to get hold of that book, then do check out the link in the description of this episode. It will be there. You can grab it. And yeah, definitely worth a read, because it's a really good breakdown of each individual song. So it is very, very cool. All right, that'll do it for today. Thank you very much for listening. Most of all, thanks go to our patrons. You put your money where your mouth is, and it's greatly appreciated. You can become a patron at patreon.com/OasisPod, which is where we post additional episodes, and there's free gifts available and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's all very good. Oh, and you get access to the Discord server. That's quite a big deal. So if you are a patron and you want to get on the Discord server, drop me a message. Or if you want to become a patron, then you know what to do. Do please follow on social media. at Oasis Podcast on Twitter is the best place to be. And and we'll be back next time with the Britpop footballer, Paul McGregor, ex-Nottingham Forest player, which is very, very exciting. Great interview, if I do say so myself. We will see you again very soon. As ever, stay in touch, stay engaged, and stay young.